leading masters and PhDs in STEM for black and brown folk, right? When you have a Kim Ramos that's making sure that our people of color gain access to capital when others are not getting it. When you have, where did May go? I was looking for Black Equity Color. There we go. When we're making it sure around liberation, what are we doing for our people and creating these spaces, right? I think it's important that we lay that groundwork. Inauguration Day next year, when she becomes president. Yes. I do not believe it's coincidental that Inauguration Day for the first black woman will be on MLK Day. I don't believe that's coincidental at all. And so people see the two of you and they see what's possible, that you can be black and brown and become an executive. You can be a mayor, you can run a major city and do it successfully. It would be helpful just for both of you to share, why is it important for people to stay in the game, right? Because you got a lot of folks who are trying to say black men not trying to vote. I think that's a nonsense. I think it's actually strategy on the other side to try to make us not vote, quite frankly, right? But when people see y'all, they're like, oh, I can be a mayor, right? I can run a city, right? I could show up at a CGI and all the things that are happening, and people want to hear what I'm talking about. So I think it's helpful to hear, why do we have to train the next generation? Why do we have to have these young cats in the game? Why is democracy so critical? And then we'll close it out so that people can eat and kick it and everything like that. Mayor Johnson. Oh, okay. Well, look, Mayor Frank Scott.
That's a lot to say, but one of the things I would share is a little insight about being a black executive, is that we have to balance black and brown expectations with white fears. And so if we do not enter our city halls with our authenticity, we only take us back. And so many times we have elected officials that are focused on their next election rather than being focused on the people. And by doing that, we draw ourselves back. I say this as the first black elected mayor of Little Rock, Arkansas, 60 years after the Little Rock Nine walked into Little Rock Central High and tested the Brown versus Board of Education. We have to stay persistent and persist, because we have to transform. We still are falling behind as black and brown people. And in that transformation, it gives us the opportunity to uphold the past but transition from it, because so too many times there have been people who have been making too much money on the past and living in it, that we're not even able to focus on the present for ourselves, to openly turn towards the future. And through that persistence, we are able to create a better beginning for our ancestors, that we truly can be their wildest dreams as we move forward.
Listen, I really like this philosophical governance over here. Mayor Scott is deep, very profound, brother, but he's absolutely right. What was fascinating about what Mayor Scott said was 2 commencements ago, President Joe Biden, which, let me just say this, President Joe Biden has already established himself as the most consequential president in our nation's history. I mean, real talk, what he endured and embraced coming out of, the Trump era. And he said to the graduating class at Howard, in fact, that the greatest threat to our democracy is white supremacy. And what's excellent about what Mayor Scott has articulated is that people are very clear about what our opposition is. It's real, and so we have to name it, because it is a real threat. I've been saying this for over a year. You have an extreme Republican Party that has not accepted the results of the Civil War. They have not. And they desperately want a rematch. And when you ask that question about why is it important that we stay in the game, it's because our opposition is still in the game.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a great moment in the movie La Amistad where Sin-Kay said, "Give us free." And so what we're ultimately engaged in is a unique moment in our nation's history where giving us our freedom exist through our leadership. Now, it doesn't mean, as Reverend Sharpton would say, everybody that's your color ain't your kind. But what I am saying, though, is that the opportunity for us to transform this country, the soul and the essence of this country, is contingent upon the freedom of those who built the country. And so I'll close with these words. Since W.B. Du Bois was mentioned earlier, W.B. Du Bois said that public education at the expense of the state, particularly in the South, after all, is a Negro idea. That the ideas that exist in this country that cut across race, gender, and class, that's deeply embedded in us. And so the next generation, it is our responsibility to give them the hope that they need so that posterity continue on this journey for complete liberation for this country. So stay in the game. Stay in the game, people. Thank you.
As we wrap up here, giving them their flowers on stage, one of the many reasons why I'll always rock with you is, from an education standpoint, you were very clear about how do we do this right for these kids and for these parents, and I paid attention to that. The elementary, so if you ever read Jonathan Kozol's Savage Inequality, Children in American Schools, that was my elementary school. So I was at PS 79 when they wrote about it. And anyone that is consistent about making sure that our kids are good, I'm going to rock with them. Right? Whenever I see Frank, and again, whenever I see Brother Moore, like, this is the epitome of what happens when people take a chance and believe in you. Because we didn't know each other 20 plus years ago, and then we both ran and both got elected to be on the board of Alpha, and that's how we got tight. And every time I can say, no, like, for real, like, that's my dude right there who's the mayor of Little Rock, it's because people believe, like a Darren Morton, was like, you know what, I'm gonna make sure that these young cats get a chance. And so my closing to everybody, Election Day technically is 6 weeks from tomorrow, but realistically voting has started. People are voting across the country and they are trying to do everything to take people back. Regardless of your faith, hopefully you can appreciate the scripture that I hope will stay with you. So Luke 2:7, and I was born on Christmas, so sometimes people want to say that, like I play with it, but like, people too often misread the verse about the birth of Jesus. And I bring it up here because Jesus was a Jewish man of color who was a refugee in a foreign land, who believed in healthcare and addressing poverty. Folks sometimes forget those things, right? People forget those things. It never said there was no room. It said there was no room for them. That's what the verse actually says. And when you talk to me about policy and people, at that time, people decided that these poor, brown-skinned folks who ain't got that much money, you can't be here. That is the same thing that is happening right now. You do not have the luxury to sit out the election. You do not have the luxury to say you chilling, because there are millions that do not believe that the four of them should be here. And so when you have people that are deciding to help our cities, we need to be there for them. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Frank Scott Jr., Mayor Brandon Johnson. We're gonna give them a chance to depart, but if we can, stay right there. They wanna do a photo. We're gonna do one this way, and then we're gonna turn around so that we can see you all. So if that means you were supposed to be someplace else, you need to turn around in a second right there.